Hello audience, welcome to Mail Business Newspaper's Knowledge Stream. Today, we are going to have a session titled Digital Transformation, and we have Mr. Simon Mulcahy, who is Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer of Salesforce. He is responsible for building next-generation solutions to transform industries and for growing Salesforce reputation and capabilities as trusted advisor to the C-suites. The digital transformation that I envision is recreation of services and businesses with digital technologies. And the core of digital transformation is the data or big data from customers and from IoT. And this big data is turned into insight by analysis of data scientists. And they use AI, analytics, data mining, and this insight is then turned into value, which is business value, which is what matters most. And the second transformation is through action by decision makers. And these two transformations is very similar to food material turns into dish by chef, and then the second transformation is the dish becomes satisfaction by the customers who came to the restaurant. The characteristics of data insight is first fact-based compared to opinion-based, and the second characteristic is personalized, and which is different from mass-oriented insight. And finally, it can be used 24/7 compared to 9 to 5 done by human beings. There are 4 steps that we can extract business values from data. The first step is to plan. It's called VID planning because it comes from value, insight, and data planning. And second step is transformation of data into insight. And the third step is to check the insight. And the final step is to take action that turns insight into value. The planning stage is very important because that determines the success or the failure of the value. Because what matters most is the value. And the value, you have to think hard what values you want to have. And then you consider what kind of insight. You have to come up with the insight that could make the values. And the final step is the data. What data you need to get an insight. This is just like customers who come to the restaurant. They first think about what kind of value they want to get from the food. Do they want to have something make them warm or cool? So they first decide what values they want to pursue. And then they decide what dish they want to have. And then the chef determines what ingredients or the material they need. And the CEO have the most important role in this transformation because CEO have to make data available in the first place. And they have to break data silos in the organization, and they have to make data accessible to everyone who can transform the data into the insight. And also they have to give credit to data collection and data sharing activities because this is usually done extra to their original functions in their corporations. The second one the CEO has to do is turn decision makers into citizen data scientists by educating them. And many Korean companies now educate decision makers from top to bottom, and so that they become more familiar and they can use data and analysis tools easily. And finally, they have to encourage fact-based decision making, which is usually different from experience-based decision making or opinion-based decision making. So they are going to get into the new era. Okay, so that's enough for the digital transformation from my point of view. And let's hear Mr. Mulcahy's view on digital transformation.
Hi, I'm Simon Mulcahy, Salesforce's Chief Innovation Officer, and I'm delighted to talk to you today about digital transformation. Of course, This is a subject that everyone is very passionate about. Certainly the pandemic has fueled it into even more of a critical imperative for every leader than ever it was before. Let's face it, we're now living in a digital first work from anywhere world. We have to be digital. And yet digital transformation has had a pretty bad track record for success in the past. Well, Salesforce has learned an enormous amount over the years about what successful digital transformation looks like. We've synthesized this into a powerful tool we call the Customer Transformation Framework. And what that does is it breaks down the 5 major disciplines that companies need to establish in order to ensure success. So today, I'd like to share 3 specific insights into this with you. And I'd like to do it in a way that allows you to be able to easily re-explain it to others. And in particular, I'd like to use it by drawing and kind of teach you 3 sketches. And each of these will then help explain some of the different ways you need to look at the world of digital transformation. So to jump straight in, the first diagram is focused on how you engage your customers, what we call customer-centric business processes. How you leverage technology to help your organization achieve better customer outcomes. This is how you build business processes that are truly customer-centric. Now, most organizations' primary use of technology has historically actually been to drive internal productivity, and it stands to reason. The most efficient and productive way of leveraging your people is the best. And the more efficient and the more productive your people and your processes are, the lower your cost base. So let's start with that as kind of the bottom axis line here. And that shows employee effort. And on the right extremity, we have a completely manual business with everything done by people, 100% employee effort. This is a highly manual business. Think of it like a sports team where competitiveness is defined by the talent you hire. You have to win the war for talent here. And on the left, you have a completely automated business with almost 0 employee effort. This is a hyper-efficient business. One person, might come into the office in the morning, switch on the power, everything happens automatically. And here, competitiveness is defined by the quality of the automation. It's much easier to succeed, of course, on the left. Now, technology allows you as an organization to move down this line over time from the right to the left by increasing productivity. Business success, though, is more than just internal productivity. It's also about how you engage your customers. So really, we need another axis for that, and we'll draw a line here for the customer. The question is what to label it. The x-axis was easy, but what are we solving for around the customer? Well, we've done a lot of research here too. And most commonly, though, we get asked to create amazing, differentiated, mind-blowing experiences. Interestingly, though, it turns out quite clearly that there's no correlation between a mind-blowing customer experience and what you're really aiming for. What you really want is your customers to keep coming back, customer loyalty. There is, however, a correlation between customer loyalty and the amount of effort you ask customers to spend to get what they want from you. The easier it is for the customer to get what they want, to get their customer's job done, the more likely they are to keep coming back to you. So that's what this axis is, customer effort, with an effortless customer experience here at the bottom, an incredibly onerous experience, lots of effort up at the top. So how do we use this to unlock insights about how to be a customer-centric company? Well, most companies, you could draw them up here. Most companies were born in a product-centric world. Internal processes and systems were designed to focus on productivity and to operate in kind of quality-controlled silos. And as a result, it's really incredibly difficult for employees to see a single view of the customer across every touch point that the customer has with the company. Collaboration's difficult across departments and teams. It's almost like a personal sacrifice. And employees have to swivel between multiple applications to get their job done. Not particularly easy. It's a dismal story for customer experience as well. because it's just simply not been an important end goal. And until recently, the mental model for most companies has actually been product-centric. Build it and they will come. Well, why? Because the scarcity, the thing that was hard to find in the market was the ability to build and distribute a product originally. Well, today, of course, especially with the internet, that's really been commoditized. And now the scarce commodity is the customer attention. That's what's hard to find. And that's why we now realize just how important it is to really, really focus on the customer, to reduce the amount of effort it takes for the customer to get what they want, because you know that's how you get their attention. So there is naturally a lot of energy around this. And in fact, there are whole teams focused on this. And that's actually where we start to begin to see the problem. The customer-focused teams do amazing things to reduce customer effort. Amazing initiatives there. But that single-minded focus on this invariably leads to rising internal costs. It leads to concierge approaches that actually skew effort because it places more effort on others internally, and you end up employing individuals to engage the customer, which increases costs and lowers productivity. So you inadvertently create that skew. Alongside this, you might have a separate team doing a completely different program focused on employee effort. You want to move the arrow in that direction. Again, amazing work on the surface, but what you see time and again is a similar skew. Great progress on the surface may be, but the customers are asked to fill out forms. They're navigating really onerous call routing systems. And this reduces employee effort naturally, which is great, but it innocently then places more effort on the shoulders of your customers. So again, it skews it in the wrong way. So is there a better way? Well, if you were to start a business today, you'd actually start it down in the bottom left. Uber, Amazon, just think of all the fintech companies, the insurtech companies, the health tech companies that have arrived recently and done very well. All of them would be built down here. Low customer effort, low employee effort. And here's what's important. It's easy for the Uber driver to find a rider, and at the same time, it's easy for the rider to find that Uber driver. Both are true at the same time. So the question is, how can you take your organization from up there at the top right, diagonally down to there on the bottom left on that path? That's the path that you want to create. Well, the answer is to think of customer and employee engagement as linked. You've got to ask yourself, and actually a very powerful question, how do I make it easier for my employees to make it easier for my customers? Think of it this way. For any given customer experience, there's a given employee effort. You can see it here. They're connected. Well, how do you design an improvement in the customer experience and move it there, but also make the employee line shift as well, make the employee more productive, reduce employee effort? And now you kind of need to build your roadmap of programs, not to do that once, but to keep on doing it. An improvement in employee experience over here, connected to an improvement in customer experience over here. And over time, through constant innovation, you then move diagonally down towards the left. Now, of course, you have to remember that you've got to understand that what today is considered low effort on both sides will be regarded as incredibly slow and inefficient and time-consuming in even 2 years' time. It's the natural way of innovation. So think of this as a journey. You'll start off digitizing a number of overly manual processes, reducing the number of systems involved, for example. You'll aggregate data more effectively to build a deeper single customer profile, a single source of truth. And you can kind of think of that as digitizing the analog. But after that, you then have got to kind of start thinking differently. To get past this point on both axes, you'll actually have to reinvent. You'll have to redesign how you work. We're in a digital-first work-from-anywhere world. This calls for new experiences that actually solve for the customer's actual job to be done. You'll be leveraging, for example, a detailed 360-degree profile of the customer. You'll have to have that in order for you to then kind of optimally deliver those personalized experiences. And those experiences that you've created, that you've specially designed, are likely to be low effort, almost intuitive for the customer. And they need to be delivered when, where, and how the customer wants. And on the channel the customer wants, with the business being able to switch seamlessly between high-tech digital touch and high-touch in-person experiences. So there you go, customer-centric business processes. The second diagram I have for you is kind of a follow-on from that. It's how you engage your employees. And we call this one team aligned around the customer. Well, most organizations are designed based on a very hierarchical model with the CEO at the top here and a pyramid of people below, with the most junior people at the bottom. Teams will probably operate in silos, as this specialization, of course, drives efficiency and productivity that we've striven for all these decades. And on the surface of this all looks nice and normal. However, what this model does is reinforce a top-down flow of information. The best ideas and directives are perceived to flow from the top down to the bottom. In a world where the customer is at the center, though, it turns out that this model doesn't work as well. Well, why is that? Well, because the most important people in your organization are those who are closest to the customer. And where are they? They're at the bottom. The most important thing you can do is empower these people at the bottom to be able to bring the full power of your organization to bear on making the customer successful, on really helping the customer solve their job. And those people can't do it on their own. This is hard to do unless your organization begins to value feedback from the front lines. Meaningful volumes of information need to flow in a different direction, from the bottom up to the top, so that customer insights can flow up and then really trigger action. Teams need to be able to form quickly around these kind of specific challenges and then actually dissolve once the need's gone. And in order to do this, you kind of do need a few important components. The first is a clear customer-centric vision from the top, from your leadership team, that really aligns your culture, gives you a vision, almost a clear picture of what you're going to do as an organization. It's going to be told as a story as well to bring it to life. And then this can then be translated into a digital operating model that then shows you how you will technically execute on turning that into reality, leveraging technology. The second, connected to that then, is collaboration tools that allow you to rapidly form those new teams around customer problems, arm the right people with the right insights, track engagement progress, and share information in real time. The third, again connected to that, is a single unified view of the customer profile that's shared across your whole organization. Everyone can then be on the same page with a shared single view of the truth. And then fourth, you need to introduce some new executive roles that actually will help reshape the organization around new ways of working. And these include things like the Chief Customer Officer, the Chief Digital Officer, the Chief Data Officer. So there you go, one team aligned around the customer. The third diagram then I'll show you is really focused on how you make decisions. Because you can create those amazing customer experiences that you've designed, effortless, internally and for the customer. You can supercharge a whole organization to be able to swarm around the customer, and amazing things will actually happen. Angels may even sing. But what happens when their market changes? How do you know if your approach is no longer working? You need to be able to sense and respond to the change in the market as quickly as possible. And data lies at the heart of this. Every company has it, but few really capture it or use it in the right way. Now, you hear a lot of executives talk about building data lakes and applying AI to the problem. But actually, there's a more fundamental way of thinking about this that's actually important for you to hear. While the amount of data you have is actually incredibly important, don't start there. Instead, Think of earning a small amount of really good feedback from your customer. And I said the word earn carefully because the customer should really feel like you've done something to earn it, because they need to value it. And how do you then turn that data into actionable insight, something that can improve your business? And then how do you turn that insight into action? Because if you do that, you'll prove to your customer that you are actually listening, and in turn, you'll earn more data from them. Now imagine doing that not just once, but for thousands or millions of pieces of customer feedback. Well, then you'll have a system in place to take data at scale, make sense of it, turn it into actionable insights, and then, well, act on it. Now you can apply the data lake and the AI to supercharge things. Now, this might sound simplistic, but so many companies are so in awe of their own products and services that they don't stop to see if customers' needs have actually changed. In the US military, they actually refer to this as the OODA loop: observe, orient, act. And it's a loop, so you then repeat it. You can think of it as a flywheel. That's how Amazon describes it. And the faster you make these data-driven decisions, the more effective you'll be as an organization. If you can make decisions faster than your competition, you will beat your competition. This is one of the secrets behind Salesforce's 21 consecutive years of 20+% year-over-year growth. Our first instinct every time there's any shift is to go out and capture the voice of our customers, really understand, and in that way we're hyper-focused on relevance. Think of actually what this means during COVID. One of the key conclusions most leaders have made as they've gone through COVID is just how important it is to be relevant. During COVID, for sure, your customers' needs changed. Did you know? How did you know? Well, if you'd asked them, you'd have been able to process that information. And if you'd been able to do that at every level of your company, you would have been able to reorient yourself around your customer quickly. One important note though, your culture can actually slow this flywheel down. You can have great data, great insights, and even great action. But if your culture rewards information hoarding, if people use information as power, then it won't flow quickly around your organization. You really need information transparency. We call that a data culture at Salesforce. The more access there is to data at every level of your business, the more people you'll then have naturally interpreting that into insights. And then the faster people can turn those insights into action. In this world of accelerating change, those organizations who are sensing and responding to change better and faster than their peers will for sure be the most competitive. So there you go. There are 3 ways of kind of looking into the world of digital transformation. It's not just about applying digital to the problem. You'll end up just translating the analog into digital. You need to think differently about things. And hopefully these diagrams you can reuse to help you on your journey to, I'm sure, a very successful digital transformation. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Mulcahy, that was a fantastic presentation, and I have a few questions. And the first one is, I get asked a lot of questions myself. What is the digital transformation? What is the definition? Or what is digital innovation? And what's the difference between the two?
So a great question, and everybody should be asking that. I think the first thing to do is break down what is digital. So think of digital as using the internet as part of your business. And then the question is just how are you doing that? Now, most people will think of their business as building a product, distributing it, via whatever into a shop and somebody selling it. And the more that you can build a great product and the more you can distribute it, that's easy. That's kind of an analog business model, analog being the opposite of digital. Now, in a world where more and more of customers want to interact with your business via the internet, to explore your brand, to educate themselves on your products, or even to buy it and trigger the delivery of it, they're going to need to go via the internet. And that's kind of where you start to go digital. Now, you should also be using your you should also be using the internet inside your organization as well, not just to engage with your customers, but to engage with your employees. So that's broadly how digital effectively intersects with your business. Now, the question is, how are you going to use digital? Your first option is really just to apply digital. Some people call that digitization, but you're effectively taking a business that maybe you're the leader of, and you inherited it from other leaders before. This business has a long history. And you're taking your business and you're now going to make it digital. What most people do is they then take the existing business model, the existing way of working, and digitize it, which means you just copy it into digital. I call that digital translation. You're just doing the same thing, but using digital. The interesting thing happens, though, when you start to look at the world and go, well, actually, that's not enough. I need to reimagine it. And that's where you start to then move into the world of digital transformation, because now you're looking at the world through a digital lens, and you can't just pour technology over your old business and it will become a new business. Your old business will just be an old business with some technology if you just do digital translation. To become transformed, you have to think, how do you reinvent your business for a world that is digital first? And we can talk about that. There's a lot of really, really interesting things there. But maybe I'll just pause there. Does that sound, is that a good start to the question answering?
Yeah, I think it's a very good start. So digital translation and digital transformation is a fantastic example. And so, for instance, most car makers, they produce cars and then they ship them to distributors. And then they say, okay, now it's your job to sell them. No matter how you do it, I'll just go back and I'll focus on making better cars. And so if the distributors, they send papers, they used to give paper catalogs to customers, and now they give them, send them email with the PDF catalog. That's digital translation in your opinion, right?
Completely.
But if like Tesla, they just let the customers come to their own website, and if they can order their Tesla models right on the website of Tesla without having that distribution channels, then that's digital transformation, because they rethink that why can't we just sell them from us instead of going through the distribution channel. That's a revolution, right? Is that your definition?
Yes, exactly. I would maybe even put more color around it. You could say digital translation is a step one. Your selling strategy, your customer service strategy, your marketing strategy. Stop using paper. Turn that into digital. It's the simple stuff, all the things that you already did. You build a car, and then you give it to somebody else who sells it to the customer. And those interactions should all be done digitally.
Right.
Digital translation. The digital transformation is when you realize that your customer, what does your customer want? Does it want to just buy a car? Or can you fundamentally reimagine what the relationship is between the car manufacturer and the owner of that car? So now maybe you build a relationship where the person starts online building a profile that then leads you to a car buying experience, which is seamless. You end up buying a car, and that car gets delivered to you, but full of personalized needs. You can go online and change your car experience. And over time, as your car, then the relationship with you and your car is still with the car manufacturer. And so when there's a service experience, your car company can engage you digitally. But it might go even beyond that. Why sell somebody a car when actually what they might want is a subscription to your brand? And now we're beginning to see that. So now you have a very different relationship where you didn't buy a car, you paid for a subscription to that car company. And now you can use an app to change whatever services that car company gives you. It just fundamentally shifts. Think of this as another really good example. The chief operating officer at Salesforce used to work at Google. When he was at Google, the CEO of Google brought him in and said to him, Yellow Pages, you remember Yellow Pages? Of course, everybody has a Yellow Pages. We use it for keeping doors open now. Well, Yahoo has come up with Yahoo Pages. I want you to go away and come back with Google's answer to Yahoo Pages, to Yellow Pages. And he came back really, really quickly. And he came back with Google Pages, which was not a good moment. He got sent away very quickly. Go away and think about this properly. Google or Yahoo Pages is just a digital copy of Yellow Pages. What can Google do with everything that Google has to solve the same problem that the Yellow Pages was solving before? How can Google solve that same problem in a world where we have everything like this? And do you know what he came back with? What the truly digitally transformed version of Yellow Pages is Google Maps. So when I say this is really important is that in this world of digital transformation, we have to go back to one very, very simple thing. What is the customer's job to be done? It's even a phrase, you can find it on the internet, job to be done, JTBD sometimes is referred to. But it is, what does the customer really, really want? And then how can you leverage your whole organization, and especially using digital to help the customer get that as easily as possible? That's true digital transformation.
Right. That reminds me of my experience with one of the Korea's HVAC or air conditioning manufacturers. And then I told them that the customers does not need the hardware of the compressors and the internal units. What they want is the cool air in the summer and warm air in the winter. So why can't you sell them subscription-based air, the proper air, not the hardware?
Exactly. And honestly, if you think of looking at doing a stress test of what could I turn into a subscription, sell it as a service, you get much closer to the problem that you can solve.
Okay. The next one is what are the obstacles you encountered when you try to introduce Salesforce products, services, or digital transformation in general to many different organizations and corporations? And how did you overcome those obstacles?
So this is another great question, because I think a lot of organizations, when they buy technology, they go to a technology vendor, a technology company, and they treat them like a vendor. Here are my exact specifications that I need. They might even use an RFP, a request for proposal process. But what they're doing is they're using a straitjacket to get very, very specific feature and function out of that technology company. Every technology company will approach the problem in a different way. And the problem is that, like, for example, Salesforce, the best way of getting the most out of Salesforce is to treat Salesforce like a partner, not a vendor. Yes, we have a lot of amazing technology, but we're also working with many of the leading brands in the world. We have an incredible depth of knowledge about how you should really create change in your organization. And what you want is that technology company, that Salesforce in particular, to bring that knowledge to the table as well. And so that treating a Salesforce like a vendor, or any technology company like a vendor, means you never get the best out of them. And the other thing then is also to think about buying technology is not a transaction. You're constantly going to have to think about how you're on a constant improvement journey. So you cannot buy technology thinking of it as pouring concrete. We'll do it once really, really well, and then it's done, and then we'll look at it again in 10 years' time. Mm-hmm. That is not how you should think about technology. Every company is becoming a digital company. You might be a bank, a telco, a hospital, but you're actually a digital organization wrapped around a telco, a bank, a hospital. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the question is, how do you become digital, not just in your IT organization, but across every part of your company. And so that pure procurement-led approach to buying technology stops you from doing that.
Yeah, then how do you convince them or persuade them to change their views or the previous ways of doing things?
Well, so first of all, Salesforce was born 21 years ago, kind of with a new idea, and that was that the technology would be delivered over the cloud. So that kind of every time, in the same way you go to Amazon and you press refresh and you get the latest, so that you would get that technology refresh in corporate technology. The whole idea that it's constantly being upgraded 3 times a year. That it was also delivered with a new business model, a subscription. So we've always been a subscription model. And what that's done is we're less focused when we're selling on the buyer and more on the end user. So the whole business model that Salesforce has was designed to kind of break away from just appealing to the buyer who has the budget and focus more on the end user. And any kind of really advanced technology company, you'll see that. They're not focused on the buyer, they're focused on the end user. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing that we found we have to do, though, is people can still buy Salesforce, but then implement it in a kind of unthinking way. They pour this amazing new technology over my organization and magic will happen. Well, no, you have to really be thoughtful about, what your business processes are and how they change, how your organization structure has to change. So what we've done is over years is we've packaged up, we've synthesized what we've learned from all of the millions of implementations from our customers, and that logic, those lessons we also bring to our customers. That's a large part of what I do as well. So a large part of Salesforce is effectively not on the selling side, but the post-sales success side.
Okay, great. Now we are in January 2021. I cannot avoid COVID-19 pandemic. So many people are saying it's hard to go back to before, even after COVID-19 is over, maybe a year or two. So in this kind of situation, a lot of experts anticipate the pandemic. How did this pandemic and our changed lifestyle and digital play in the future after the pandemic is over?
I mean, I think we've already begun to see it. We're already seeing the change. And what COVID definitely did, no question, was a massive accelerant. So change that was already going to happen has just been vastly accelerated. We already knew that there was a big change. Companies moving from being product-centric to being customer-centric. COVID just accelerated that. The needs to have digital engagement with your customers has already logically understood, and that now that's accelerated to digital first. We're now in a digital first work from anywhere world. And what that means is digital first means that analog second. Yes, you will have to engage your customers physically, but it's going to start digitally. Are you designed to do that? So many organizations have been racing for the last few months to basically solve for that problem. They were designed in an analog first way. They were using a little bit of digital, but not enough. And all of those companies had a transformation roadmap. Maybe it was 5 years, but they realized that 5-year plan, they had to deliver it in 6 months. And what they did was they shocked themselves by the fact that they could actually do that. They're like, wow, we could do this in that much time. We could make decisions and change. Oh my God, what else can we do? So I think a lot of leaders are now just realize how much they can do, but now everybody realizes that it is digital first. I think the companies who sat on their fingers and waited for the old normal to return, they're the ones who've had the hardest time. Those organizations that were born digital or who had a strong leadership plan in place now already racing ahead. So the answer to move ahead now for all of these companies is it's now look at your business and go, how is it digital first? How do I transform the ability for my employees to engage digitally? How do I really make sure that I'm now connected to my customers digitally? And I know how to manage the high tech engagement, but also the high touch, and I can switch between the two. So I think that's kind of the imperative for every company, and it means leadership really needs to change, and that means the people can still stay there, but they have to understand, if you're a leader in this world, you better understand digital. And if you're on the board, you kind of got to know what digital, you need to understand what an API is. You need to understand what a digital strategy is. You need to understand the basics of cybersecurity, because if not, you're too far behind. You need to catch up.
Right. I cannot agree with you more. Salesforce usually deal with customers who are B2C companies.
We were born B2B as well, so we're
also B2B
and B2C, definitely.
Right. And many B2Bs, many of them are in brick and mortar industries, and they say, yeah, we want to go digital, but our customers are not digitally functioning, so we still have to do analog. I hear that often too, because they are interested in going digital, but their customers and clients are not digital. So I mean, it's like chickens and eggs, who goes first, etc. So what is your experience with B2B companies that are less digital than B2C companies?
So I think in a world of B2B, we definitely saw during COVID, the customer service teams were separate. The salespeople no longer could go visiting the customer. Mm-hmm. And there's been a revolution in selling over the last 9 months. Why? Because now in a digital first work from home world, as a B2B salesperson, you don't have to sell anymore. Your job has changed. You can now bring the A team to any customer meeting. You can leverage the whole of your organization in that B2B sales experience if you're able to. And so the best B2B salespeople will be the ultimate orchestrator. They will have to be better able to answer questions, ask questions. They will have to be better knowledge synthesizers, but they don't have to do the selling anymore. They can bring the best experts from the whole company to that digital Zoom or Google Hangout meeting. So now the B2B salesperson needs to learn new skills and have more digital collaboration tools at their fingertips. It's an amazing time for B2B salespeople. In the B2C world, there's a different thing going on there. In the B2C world, you've got to really deeply, more effectively understand your end customer and be much more thoughtful about your personalized outreach. It's amazing how many companies still do spray and pray discounting. Everybody gets a discount. It's Christmas. You all get discounts. Yeah. This is crazy. Why am I receiving a discount if I'm a high value customer and I'm going to buy anyway?
Right.
The company should know and be able to segment its customers and treat the high value, always returning customers not with a discount, but with opportunities to buy something else, to cross and upsell. And then you use your discount strategy to target your lower value customers who might not return. So there's many different techniques in B2B and B2C selling, but the point is, in this digital first world, all of those strategies need basically blowing up and rethinking, because we are in a very different place now than we used to be.
So I think many audiences who is watching your video and they say, okay, I like to go digital. I like to start digital innovation. So please tell us where and how to get started. to achieve this successful digital innovation? What should they do first, and what's the next step? And so, could you tell us the step-by-step sort of things to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd start with always going back to the first and most important thing is like, do you understand who your customer is and what they want? And I don't mean what product they want to buy from you, but what is it that they're trying to do? And when was the last time you spoke to them? Go out and speak to your customers and understand what problem that you can help them with and how they want you to engage. And I say that because most people are like, oh, no, I've done that ages ago. We have a whole group. No, when you go out and you take your leadership team and you really hear what customers are going through, you have a big moment of understanding. So first step is really understand your customers' needs. The second step is then come back and think, okay, how do I take my business processes and change them to be more customer-centric? And you can start tactically, but let me explain something important to do strategically. And that is, at the top level of your organization, do you have a vision for how your organization is going to engage your customers? Do you have a CEO kind of vision of a customer-centric organization and how your organization is going to, help those customers? That vision is very important. You then translate that into what we call a digital operating model, which is simply how the business and IT will come together to help turn that vision into reality. And the most important thing is you're not basically looking at the steps for your organization to manufacture and sell something. You're looking at what is the vision for a customer to buy. It's not the steps from you out to the market. It's from the customer, the steps they have to take to come back to you. And you should redraw, turn that into a story that you could really understand, and then go, what do I need to change in my company to make that story possible? Mm-hmm. How do I make that customer journey from the outside in better? And that's when you now have effectively the beginnings of a digital strategy. And then you need to apply technology to it. You should think of Salesforce as an example, but there are others who will help you build that storyline, help you build that digital operating model, and show you what technologies you might need to retire and what technologies you need to bring in. But you should think of it not as a big explosion. It should be seen as a journey. And you should start with simple projects that build momentum and build confidence, and then you grow. But all the time behind it, what you're doing is you're moving from having multiple individual touch points with the customer to every single touch point building a deeper, unified single source of truth around what the customer is. You need to have one place where you can see everything you know about your customer in one place. And what that does is it allows you then as a company to look at your customers and say, how best can we serve them? And you can see, you have a single place where the truth is. Most organizations have, for each product division, they will have a sales database with information. There'll be a separate customer service database. There'll be separate marketing databases. All this information is in 500 different places. That is not an active digital strategy. So bringing it all together is a very fundamental part of it. Hopefully some of that will help, but certainly thinking of it as a journey, make sure you've got the story, and then build a digital operating model plan for how you will then systematically execute.
Right, great, step by step. And small success generates the next step, and then you go from one step to the next. And the last remark really hits me with the silos of data silos. And usually the companies, the big corporations, they have silos of management, and but data is also put in different places, and they sort of I mean, the people don't talk to each other, right? And the data don't talk to each other, and they are all very separated. And they have to be put into one place and have to be combined to get a much better effect. Everybody knows they have to be combined. But what do you think makes it not working together? And how do you overcome those? No, this is my data.
Yeah, totally. Well, it all starts, and it's nobody's fault either. That's very important to say. It's nobody's fault. But when you start a business decades ago and you have one business unit, they manufacture a product, they manufacture this, and they then sell it. And so they build their go-to-market, they have their data, they have their IT organization. Then another department comes along through acquisition or separate that now sells this. This business will compete internally, and they will have their own systems and their own data and their own customer touch point. Now, it turns out that the customer can be the same.
Right.
And yet the business who owns both of these will not know that I own both of these. They'll treat me as two separate customers. Or the way I describe it is you have sales knocking on the door while customer service is ringing the phone, while marketing is trying to stick something under the door. Even sales, service, and marketing are on different pages. And this is just the way that we've operated because everybody operated in silos of efficiency. But it was all from the point of view of just execution. That world is now gone. That's dead. You have to do that basics. Now, the question is, how do you leverage what you understand, what you know about the customer, so that your selling, servicing, and marketing experiences can all help the customer? That means they need to be brought together. It means that if you know the customer has bought this, then you have the opportunity to sell them that. Here's a really powerful statistic, very, very powerful statistic. A customer of yours who has one product of yours is worth 1x to you, the exact value of that product. If a customer has two of your products and you know it, that customer is worth 5x to you. So you should not be thinking about finding more customers to sell this. You should be thinking your business problem that you should be addressing is not sell more of these. Your business problem is, how do I sell these and then convert them to this? That's your business problem. That means your business problem is, how do I create 5x value customers, not more 1x value customers? It's a different way of looking at the problem.
Right. So do you think that have to be key performance indicators have to be changed in the corporation? Because, say, the red pen and the black pen executives, they sort of compete against each other within the organization.
Totally, yes.
Right? And
yes.
Why do they help each other? They're competitors within the organization.
So this is a really good point. So what you need to look at is customer lifetime value. Most companies are still not looking at customer lifetime value. It is an incredibly valuable metric, because if you're looking at that, it will lead you to have very, very different insights, different ways of thinking about your customer, because you will be able to engage them and get more value from them. If you have customers with high lifetime value, you should treat them differently. You should turn them into your spokespeople, because in this world of the evolution of marketing and brand and advertising is dead. You need the best sponsors, the best marketers of your brand are your customers. Do you even know who your high customer lifetime value customers are? If you don't, how are you going to take those amazing people and really invigorate them to sell for you? Just go out on social media and say, I've bought these two pens and they're amazing together. Like, wouldn't it be best if your customers were doing that? So it's a new way of thinking about how you engage your customers. And that transactional mindset fails to get the value. And that means if you're a business unit leader of this team or that team, you realize that data is better when it's combined. And now you build strategies of cross and upsell between those teams. And then you think about what the third thing that's missing. That's actually, when you look at it, think about any of these big businesses, Apple or Amazon or Google, for example, but their business models are predicated on, they build an amazing business, but then they realize there's an adjacent business that they can also create. And then they create all of these flywheels that they all connect off each other. Here's a good example. The most famous watch company for a long time was Rolex. But the biggest watch selling company in the world today is Apple. It came from nowhere. So you can have the best product in the world, but unless you're thinking about that long-term customer relationship and the value you could add and the other adjacencies, you will probably find yourself beaten by somebody who is thinking about that.
Right. Not another watch manufacturer, but IT company. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So final question is, what do you think of the customer relationship management doing right now? And it has been around for more than 20 years. And it was very, very hot in the early years, and then the popularity sort of went down. But still, I believe that the idea of customer relationship management is very, very important. That many of the ideas that you proposed today, customer lifetime value and cross-sell, upsell, all those things come from customer relationship management.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, when Salesforce started 21 years ago, CRM, and we have it in our stock ticker, we focused on two things. CRM was really forecasting and contact management. That was it. It was basically a tool to manage salespeople. But what we did was we listened to the market, and 21 years later, the CRM, where the total addressable market was maybe that big, the total addressable market for CRM now is enormous. And now it is one of the biggest areas of enterprise software. Why is that? Well, because basically there's been a big shift. The big shift is towards putting the customer in the center of your business.
Right.
So now what's the tool that allows you to do that? CRM. And for us, CRM has just grown as we've been listening to customers and they've told us what CRM should be next. CRM means every single touch point you have with the customer, you need to be basically, that information should all flow into a single place.
Right.
That data needs to be available for anybody to see, so that if the customer goes into a bank branch or phones you or goes online, the response can be leveraging the same customer data. Well, that's kind of at the heart of it. But it just turns out that because it's now so important, we've had to then supplement that, because you need a lot of data, which is why we had to buy MuleSoft, so that you could get data from many, many different places and bring it together. So we bought this amazing organization that will take data from all these crazy places where you've lost it, especially old systems, and then bring it all together. We had to buy another company, Tableau, so that you could take that data and turn it into amazing visualizations, so that it can be used across the organization. All of this means that data needs to be used with permissions, so that certain people have certain rights to see information. And you should be able to control that down to the field level. That's as important as anything. But the fact is that with that security in place, anybody can have access to the right information, if as long as they have the right entitlements. And so I think CRM, for that reason, is now the heart of kind of enterprise software.
Right.
And think of this, what does a company do? Well, a company has a supply chain, and it used to be that a company then it would all be about what their supply was. So many business models are ERP centric. They have all of their supply, they manage that, and then they push it to the marketplace. And they use CRM to manage the front end. But we're in a world today where you've got to understand demand in real time and match it to supply. And that's the world, that's where CRM really now is that fundamental technology platform to do that.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that Tableau, I'm a big fan of Tableau. It's great for visualization. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mulcahy.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, and I hope the audience will get a lot today from you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you again. It's a real honor to be talking to you. Wishing you the best of a good January.
Wishing you the best in 2021 and beyond.
And beyond. Bye then.